Okay, right then, here we are again. We are back. Welcome, everybody. This is the We Quit Booze Brothers, which is a podcast where we try to have honest, no fluff conversations about our various experiences of quitting alcohol. And with me, as always, is my brother Matt. Hello, Matt.
Hey Mark, good evening. Yep, good to be back. Another topic, another day. So yeah, raring to get going.
Yeah, we're doing an evening session again because just stuff busy over the weekend, things going on. So here we are. But because of course the in the UK the clocks have gone forwards. Same in
Yep.
France.
Same in France, same in
Moving
France. Yes,
forward.
we
Well,
lost an hour yesterday.
yeah, but it means
Mm.
that lovely light evenings and the weather's been lovely, so it's all good. So there you go. Right. Okay, so the conversation we wanted to have today is to talk about anxiety and basically how alcohol fucks with your anxiety.
Yep.
And this was a really big one for me, actually. When I was in my 20s, I never got any form of anxiety. I never really worried about anything. I never got any social anxiety. If I had to do public speaking, I sort of didn't like that. I tell you what I used to fucking hate is if you're in a big meeting and it's a whole group of people that have never met before and they make you do that thing where they say, let's go around the room and introduce yourselves. I'll find that the worst thing in the world. But anyway, that's
Yeah.
just a by the
Or
by.
we're going to get
But
up and do an activity in groups and just
no,
literally take me away,
yeah,
make it go
awful,
away.
awful, awful. But like I said, during my 20s, didn't really get much anxiety, if any, just kind of rolled with the punches, blah, blah, blah. In my 30s, I started to notice that in certain situations I felt anxious. And it got progressively worse. And I used to think that I was developing a problem with anxiety. Now, what I realize since I've quit drinking is that didn't have a problem with anxiety. It was fucking alcohol. And it used to send me into like stratospheric levels of anxiety, which got worse and worse and worse. And I think now when I look back on it, I would say that's probably one of the biggest reasons why I ended up quitting because and I think the longer it goes and the more you drink, it probably just sort of mounts on top of each of itself. And what I was finding is that so I used to like when I first started drinking in my 20s and I had a hangover, I didn't really mind them. In a funny sort of way, I quite enjoyed hangovers. I used to sort of enjoy that weird sort of mix of sort of feeling a bit tired, but slightly sort of amped up. I mean, not I don't know if we'll edit this out or in, but like as a for example, I used to quite enjoy hangover sex. If we had the day after, don't ask, okay, maybe we will cut that out. But it wasn't an awful experience, let's just put it that way. But as I got older, and I think maybe as I got older, or maybe as I drank more, I noticed that anxiety started to creep in. Initially, it would just be the next day. It would be wake up in the middle of the night, 3 in the morning, pounding heart. If I was waking up and it was a work day, if it was after a weekend, I'd get this terrifying brick wall of sort of overwhelm and anxiety about what I had to do that week. I'd start to worry about stuff. We've had this conversation before. I would like
Mm.
start to not book meetings on a Monday because I always knew that I wouldn't. And that wasn't because I would be tired or just a bit dehydrated. It's because I knew I couldn't really face it. Now, that just got worse and worse for me. And it started to get to the point where I remember one occasion when I was coaching soccer in the US and it was a Tuesday night. And one of the other coaches called me out and asked me if I could just take a session and said, could I just explain to the, and I got this like awful feeling of fear and I mean, I did it, but I had to really choose it. And I thought, I'm becoming an anxious person. And
Mm.
as I say, since I've quit drinking, okay, not all of the anxiety is gone. Doing this podcast can sometimes be a bit scary, it can
Yep.
sometimes feel having to speak and do this, but I'm much more regulated. And of course, what you learn, and there is some science behind this, but there's this thing called it's called GABA. They call it. It is the thing. It stands for. I'm going to try and pronounce it. It stands for gamma aminobutyric acid, and it's basically your body's chemical system for keeping you calm. It's the sort of chill out chemical that we all have natural levels of GABA in our system.
Mm,
And when you drink alcohol, it basically uh, increases GABA. It gives you this big sort of dose of chill out, calm, and it's why people talk about it gives me confidence. It gives me confidence in social situations. It sort of tills you out, it relaxes you. But of course, it's like this artificial overload. And what happens when you drink alcohol, when the alcohol starts to, leave your system, your body recognizes that there are unusual levels of this chemical. So it counteracts it with things like cortisol, glutamine, things that are associated with a sort of these sort of natural occurring stimulants that suddenly get released into your system, aka fucking anxiety. And
mm,
the sort of analogy I would use just to sort of highlight this is it's like if you had a car, it's like the brake, GABA's the brake. It's like just put the brake on, slow things down, make everything calm. All of a sudden, your body recognizes the brakes on, takes the brake off, hits the accelerator at full force, and then all of a sudden you're just filled with this. You're filled with anxiety. You're filled with cortisol. It absolutely fucks with your brain's natural balance. And so it's a weird one because, like a lot of people, I think I drank to sort of chill out. I think I drank to relax. I think I drank because it took me out of the sort of norm. But I'm not probably not telling anybody something they don't already know. But just in case you are thinking of quitting, and just in case you are or you have quit, and you're thinking of reasons why you should continue to quit, this increased anxiety is a big one, and it was a big one for me, and it really hammered me, and it really was a problem. And I have to say, since I've quit, I don't consider myself to be an anxious person anymore. I don't consider myself to be somebody that suffers particularly with anxiety, get worried about things, get concerned about things, but I've just completely stabilized that out. So anyway, long-winded as always. I'll stop there, but yeah, that's you know um, get your thoughts on it, Matt.
yeah, no, I know it's always been a big one for you, the anxiety thing. And I think for me, I never really realized what anxiety kind of was until I quit. And for me, it was that, yes, I used to get that waking up in the night worrying about things. You get a thing called the rebound effect, which is where your body is so delighted that it's managed to break down the alcohol at about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. It gives you a boost of adrenaline and that wakes you up. And obviously it's 2:30 in the morning. Your body's not how it should be. And, worry and anxiety starts. But that aside, which was a problem. I think for me, for a long time, I would just try and avoid situations. I would steer away from any contact. I would come into the office. I would move meetings around. I would try and organize my day so that I didn't actually have to be involved with other people, or certainly not other people that I didn't particularly want to be with, or where I may be asked to do something that would put me out of my comfort zone. But inevitably it did happen. I remember one time I was called into this crisis meeting, and people were talking to me. I was just thinking, please go away. And because I was doing it, I wasn't listening, so I wasn't paying attention, so that was tripping me up as well. And like my anxiety was like through the roof. And then they were going, right, you've got to communicate to all the customers about this crisis. We need to update them every 30 minutes and all this. And I was just sat there, and it was hot. The room was hot. There were lots of people, and I was just sweating. And I was just thinking, get me out of here, please get me out of here. And I couldn't. I had to stay and deal with it. And it was just awful. But for me, I put that down to, you're an idiot. You drank last night. but it was anxiety. It was that utter sort of dread and fear. And then sometimes coming into work, just, like, why have I done this again? Why have I done this again? Here I am back on, back on a Monday morning, back on a Tuesday morning or whatever, just going in thinking, effectively writing off the day, like knowing I'd be useless, like really, I will do the bare minimum. And
Yeah, that's an
now I
interesting point.
find it, I find it absolutely just dreadful when I look back at, the missed opportunities, the lack of effort, the lack of involvement, because I looked for the way out.
Mm. That's really interesting because I think what you've just said is that you almost avoided situations that would create anxiety. So you were,
Yes,
for a
definitely.
long time, you didn't get the anxiety because you just took away any risk of there being any anxiety. And then
As much as
when,
I could, yeah,
yeah, as
which
much
was
as you could.
always possible.
No, no, exactly. And then when it
Yeah,
happened, like that meeting, the crisis meeting, you sort of normalized it and you kind of made excuses for it. And you just went, oh, I just drank too much last night. This is just because I, and that's really kind of interesting, isn't it? And I think we all do that. You just think, oh well, if I didn't, I drank loads, but of course, the longer it goes on, I mean, I was in a situation where it was really difficult for me to avoid those situations because I was running
yeah,
my own business. I was the CEO.
exactly.
I was the boss. I
Yeah,
was the person that everybody it felt would come to when there were any problems, and you you just know that when you're on display and you're on show and you're having to perform, the alcohol induced anxiety would just flood in, and then it was always a double whammy because you would be suffering because of the anxiety, then you would beat yourself up for getting anxious. So it would be the anxiety itself and then the double whammy of feeling shit about yourself for being in that situation.
yeah,
And
yeah,
one of the things that we talk about is when you quit alcohol, there's this what we call the return to self. And I think one of the one of the many fantastic things is it allows you to just get comfortable with who you are. There are times when I get nervous, and that's fine. It's natural. It's normal. It's
yeah.
exactly as you should feel. If
It's
you're doing
healthy.
a presentation, you should feel slightly nervous. That's
Yeah,
your body getting you ready. You don't want to go in and just go, oh yeah, hi everyone. Yeah, I was going to talk to you about, you want to be slightly amped up. So
yeah, you're
uh,
right.
and it gives you the clarity, doesn't it? When you quit, it gives you that clarity to be, yeah, okay, it's fine. I do get nervous in those situations. So fucking what? It's totally fine.
Yeah, yeah, I agree, and I think I still I still get sort of anxious if like I hate it when if someone, I don't know, says, oh, let's do a lunch. Like there's a thing in my company where people can just contact you and that you don't know, and they do this thing, which is fine. It's like an introduction thing, and they say, oh, hi, I've been given your name, can I have lunch with you? And you're like, sure, that's fine. And you know what, 99% of the time it's absolutely great, but that's when I get the anxiety bit, because I'm like, God, I don't know this person. What am I going to talk to them about? I've got to sit down for an hour and a half. This is going to be a bit of a pain. And a bit like, now I've evolved in life a bit. I have people who work sort of for me, if you like, and I have to look after them almost at times, and there's almost a bit of anxiety about that, because you kind of
Yeah,
feel I'm responsible for them.
yeah.
I have to protect them a bit. I have to make sure that they're okay, and is everything going to be all right? And most of the time, of course, it's absolutely fine. But you get that nervousness, and
But imagine those lunches if had a big skinful the night before.
it'd
Imagine
be awful, awful. I used to do this thing as well. It's like, sometimes this is just terrible. It's like I used to occasionally be like super conscious that, is there alcohol in my breath? Like people were talking to me, and I'd actually sometimes stand there holding my breath, like
yeah,
for as long as I could, because I'd be thinking, I don't want to breathe. I don't want to breathe on you. No one ever said anything. I don't know if that was it wasn't
yeah,
like all the time, but there were times when you go into like a meeting room and it would be busy and it would be the morning, and you'd be like, I wish I
Yeah,
could
and
see it.
like if that isn't going to induce anxiety, I don't know what is. You know,
Yeah.
like that sort of. I did exactly the same. I remember when I was coaching soccer and I was coaching, kids, and I'd talk to the parents and I'd be like, I don't want them to smell any alcohol on my breath because I'm their coach. How
Mm.
horrendous is that? How
Yes.
horrific is it? And so, anyway, okay. Well, look,
But that
I
that all goes away. That, I that's the one thing I would say is that you still get those moments of nervousness. There's kind of, I don't know, work senior people that I work with where, when I have to go and talk to, I'm a bit nervous about it. I'm a bit, I'm human, and I think that's okay. And sometimes you don't have the right words, or you don't, and you think, oh, well, there's nothing to talk about. You don't have anything in common, but that's absolutely fine. But for me, I think what I would say, and what I've, the experience I've heard many times, and I believe it to be true, is that alcohol just is like throwing petrol on the fire for
yeah,
anxiety.
yeah.
You suffer from anxiety.
You think it's the solution and it's actually the cause. For me,
Absolutely.
it definitely was because I know how I feel now and I know
Yeah,
how I felt then. And it was just this constant, like cortisol fueled state of mild panic. I couldn't think as quickly. My brain didn't work when I was hungover or tired or dehydrated. And now, yeah, it doesn't go away immediately. You don't suddenly become, Mr. or Mrs. or Miss, like, uber confident overnight, but you do slowly start to, repair. And there's other things as well, which just to sort of finish off from me, I've found super useful with this sort of thing of anxiety is now I do quite a lot of exercise. Exercise really helps.
mm,
I do exercise most mornings, and it tends to just almost squeeze out anxiety. It seems to just get rid of it. And of course, the reason I can exercise in the morning is because I wasn't drinking the night before. I don't wake up with a
yeah,
hangover. So now I've just become a complete habit for me. And I exercise pretty much every morning now. And to the point where I sort of can't imagine what a day would be like without it. So there's lots of things you can do. Alcohol unequivocally, not just through our lived experience that we can share with you, but scientifically fucks with you. It completely messes with your brain's the way that your body and your system is designed to manage and stabilize emotion, including anxiety. It completely fucks with all of that. Like you said, you get this big chill out, you get this big thing, and then it's like it comes back with interest. It comes back at you. The payload is enormous. So
yeah.
yeah,
Totally agree. Totally agree. So yeah, I think it is a real change of life, and that is one of the huge benefits that comes from quitting alcohol. So
yeah, yeah.
cool.
Cool. All
I
right.
think that's a
Okay. I'm
good
trying to
place
think
to
if there's
leave it.
anything else I want to say about it, but I think that's about it. We'll leave it there. As always, thanks very much for listening. Hope that was useful. Hope it helps. I think there's few reasons why we do this, but some of the feedback we get is that when you've given up, sometimes it's nice to just listen to people that have done it and just get reassured and just remind yourself of all the great reasons why you quit, why you want to quit, why you want to stay off the booze. And yeah, if you've ever suffered from any increased anxiety, you can bet your bottom dollar that alcohol is well and truly in that room, contributing and then some to that. So take that out and learn to figure out who you are as a person, what you're good at, lean into those things, and don't beat yourself up when you're not great at things. Just be you, and that's what
Yeah. Great
alcohol.
words. Great words. And let us know what you think. We're always interested in your comments and thoughts. It's really helpful. It gives us ideas on where to go. And and you know what, we still listen to other people who do these type of podcasts. I think, that constant learning when you stopped is great, and just reassurance listening. And we try and do that from our side too.
Absolutely. Cool. Awesome. Okay. Well, thanks for listening. As always, never quit quitting. I'll say goodbye. It's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me.
Goodbye from him. Till next time. Cheers. Bye for now.